I'd like to welcome everyone to the launch, the formal launch of the tranSMART platform version 1.2. Um, we're joining here by webinar coming from the University of Michigan campus in Ann Arbor and distributed throughout the globe for our various demonstrations. This agenda is really to formally announce the launch of the 1.2 platform, which is something that we've been working on as a community for the past nearly 12 months. Just for everyone's information, the events are being recorded for future offline viewing, and those events will be made available on the Foundation YouTube channel at some point in the near future. The agenda for the program today, I want to give you a few opening remarks and set the stage for what you're going to see. But we're going to go through basically the highlights that we have of version 1.2 and how 1.2 really sets a new mark for the tranSMART platform. The release highlights will be given by Brian Athey today out of Ann Arbor, who will be going, he's the Chief Scientific Officer and co-founder of the Foundation, and he'll be going through some of the key features and introducing the demonstrators for each of the key features that we're demonstrating. At that point, we'll run through some demonstrations from the key developers of these key capabilities. So we have 7 individual demonstrations, which is a subset of the functionality that is new to version 1.2. But you'll get a good flavor for all of the key features that have been brought to bear, and you'll be getting that information directly from the groups responsible for developing that capability. As we go through the demonstrations, we'll get to the point where we've completed that, and Rudy Potenzone, who's the VP of Marketing for the Foundation, will give us an overview of the documentation and the video demo programs that we've put in place, and then take you through rebranding. What you'll notice on our slides today is a new logo and a new look and feel for the Foundation, and Rudy will be bringing you through that and telling you about what we're doing in the near future. We'll have a little bit of time at the end for questions and answers, and then I'll give you some quick closing remarks and tell you a little bit about what to look forward to in the future. With that, I'd like to give you the quick introduction to this presentation and to this demonstration. The tranSMART Foundation is about 1.5 years old now. It is the second iteration of the tranSMART Foundation. It was co-founded by Brian Athey and Michael Braxton-Taylor, working with E.K. Go, Kevin Smith, myself, and a number of others. And the real vision that united us in forming the tranSMART Foundation was to realize the promise of translational research, and that is to really make effective the translation of research and discovery research in particular, and to realize that impact on the clinical practice of medicine. That translated for us into a mission statement specifically around tranSMART, and what we're really focused on as a foundation is enabling the sharing, integration, and standardization of heterogeneous data that comes from collaborative translational research. The nature of translational research is that it is a group and collaborative activity, many times distributed globally in its scope. And the goal of the tranSMART Foundation is to work with the tranSMART platform, an open source and open data platform, to build a community that can more effectively collaborate in this area of translational research using the tranSMART platform as an enabling technology. To give you a sense of who the Foundation is and what we do, the management of the Foundation are members of industry, both pharma and biotech, as well as service providers and software, coming from academia as well and nonprofit sectors. And we are a team of experienced managers. There's a lot of gray hair around the table who come together to spend part of our time devoted to the goals and the mission of the Foundation. The board of directors of the Foundation is drawn from our members. We are a member-driven nonprofit company. They represent industry, academia, government, and nonprofit sectors. We have a 15-member board that governs the overall activities of the Foundation. And then as a member-driven corporation, a foundation, our members really are drawn from across the translational research community, from pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, academic medical centers, service providers, nonprofit, and research foundations. And these are groups that come together to support the Foundation and the developing community around the Foundation. And of course, most important is the community. The translational research community is really composed of those people involved in early discovery research through clinical proof of concept. And it really spans the gamut from pharma, biotech, and academia, as well as involving key government and government-sponsored research programs. I want to introduce the management team very quickly, just so you know who we are and who will be speaking with you today. I'm the CEO, Keith Elliston. I'm a veteran of pharma, coming from Merck and Bayer, biotech, where I spent 15 years doing biotech startups. And then the last 3 years working largely in the nonprofit sector, initially at CHDI, the Huntington's Disease Foundation, and more recently with Orion Bionetworks and others. Kevin Smith is our Chief Operating Officer, Secretary, and Community Manager. He is an academic software veteran out of the University of Michigan and NCIBI, amongst other programs. Our Treasurer and CFO is Ashley George, who's a pharma veteran. Coming from GSK and also the nonprofit sector of Pistoia Alliance. Brian Athey is our Chief Scientific Officer. He's a true academic thought leader in the field of bioinformatics and computational biology. He's a department chair at the University of Michigan and was the key leaders behind the NCIBI program. EK Go is our CTO. He is both an academic and industry veteran, having been very early and thought leader in Imperial College in the areas of computer science and data science, as well as forming software companies, including InfoSense, which has been incorporated into IDBS, where he's the Chief Innovation Officer. Rudy Potenzone is our VP of Marketing, another true industry veteran coming from the software side, working with Ingenuity, where he headed up marketing with Microsoft, Cambridge Soft, and PerkinElmer. And then Michael Braxenthaler, again, one of our co-founders, who's in charge of our marketplace development and working with this, is experienced both in pharma and in the nonprofit sector, working with Roche and also being the CEO of the Pistoia Alliance. And so what we brought together is a very experienced team that spends a key part of its time focused on the goals and the mission of the foundation, and works with the community to realize this in the efforts that we put forward in terms of the platform that you see today. The goals that we've enumerated and that this version 1.2 is a key deliverable of has been to establish and sustain tranSMART as preferred data sharing and analytical platform for translational research. And I think that we've really seen that blossom over the past year. We think that the version 1.2 will really meet a lot of the needs of the community and will establish that even further. Our goal is to link academic, nonprofit, and corporate research communities together so they can share data, share information, and do collaborative research facilitated by the tranSMART platform. We also want to align and grow a vibrant developer network around the scientific goals of the community to ensure that we can continue to innovate this technology that's really needed in this space. And then finally, we want to focus on reducing the barriers to entry through use of advanced technologies in an active marketplace. And what you'll find with version 1.2 is that we've done this in terms of the ability to install the platform, to utilize the platform, to make use of it. We believe we've really reduced the barriers to entry. And that's a real critical aspect in growing the adoption of the platform through our community. But the real focus of the foundation is growing the community. The community is what makes the platform. The platform enables the community, but it's really being, growing, and participating in the community that is the goal of the foundation. And it's this community that has come together to both develop and to test and to deploy the platform that you'll be seeing today. So one of the questions that is obvious to ask here is, well, why tranSMART? Why is tranSMART of interest today? And it's really of interest because of the growing problems that we see in translating research, basic research, into therapeutics in the clinic. One of the things that we know is the cost of developing a drug has gone from about $100 million back in the early 70s to, in some estimates today, over $13 billion per new drug, depending on the company developing it. What's really interesting as well is that we've seen an increase in the rate of phase 3 failures. When you've invested the most in a drug and you get to the point where you're really doing validation of that efficacy, still 50% of phase 3 trials fail. This is really the key that we are trying to enable. And why can tranSMART have an impact here? This is a recent study coming from Nature Reviews Drug Discovery about lessons learned from AstraZeneca and looking at their drug pipeline. In essence, they compared trials that used molecular biomarkers as key readouts for trials versus those that didn't. And what they found is that 82% of projects that had an efficacy biomarker were successful in phase 2A compared to 30% of projects without a biomarker. So a dramatic increase in success rate. And in addition, 85% of all projects that they run now include a personalized healthcare strategy. And initial analysis shows that there's a 400% increase in success rate when you implement this personalized healthcare strategy using biomarkers. And what is a biomarker in this case? What does it do? It really ensures that we have the right target for the disease and we can differentiate that in terms of efficacy, that we're looking in the right tissue for bioavailability, for pharmacodynamics, etc. That we have the right safety, that we understand and know what the safety margins are, that we can clearly understand what is happening not only with the drug itself, but reactive metabolites, genotoxicity, and look at drug-drug interactions. That we're treating the right patients, the right patient with the right disease, so that the drug, in fact, can have its effect on that disease state. These are the key elements that are important in designing the right clinical trials to be able to move programs forward more effectively and to improve the benefits for patients. What is the translational research domain? It's really the convergence of drug discovery and clinical research, not into a single entity, but in fact into a communication in which the discovery process informs the clinical development process, and the clinical research informs the discovery process. So being able to collect all the data that we need, both from the discovery research side and the clinical side, to understand the complexity of the disease biology by collecting appropriate samples and bringing those together, linking the heterogeneous data types together, and being enabling of the analysis and visualization of those data. These are the key functions that we need to enable in bringing these together. When we do that, what we get, in fact, is a big data problem. That big data problem is not unlike the problem that Google has with their Google Earth and Google Maps. Is we have lots of different data from lots of different types of technologies, measuring lots of different things, measuring metabolomes and proteomes and microRNA and epigenomics and transcriptomes, SNPs, genome variation, full genome sequence. All this information that needs to be brought together to build an understanding of what is the nature of a disease state, what is the nature of drug action, who is the best patient to be treated with that compound. Well, in essence, all these data need to be centered, not like in a Google map where we have a GPS coordinate, but in fact by the patient, which is our GPS coordinate for healthcare. So we need to take all this data from all these different sources, from many different resources, and unify that on the patient so that we can now select appropriate cohorts, we can do our analysis, we can identify those biomarkers and those states that are necessary to push this forward. So translational research data is big data, not just in terms of volume, but also in terms of complexity. And the platform, the tranSMART platform, comes into this environment as a means to collect the data, to unify the data, to curate that data, to semantically integrate the data, so that we now have that organized in such a way that it can be analyzed and utilized. And not just by an individual scientist, but in fact by entire research teams, and those research teams being, in many cases, virtual and across organizations and across the globe. And what that data mart enables us to do by having that common data model, by having those semantic integration and the semantic regularization of those data, enables us to then implement a series of analytics across that that allows us to select the patients, analyze the data, and come to the conclusions and form hypotheses. So in essence, we can develop, in a hypothesis-free environment, new hypotheses about the biology of interest. So the tranSMART platform enables this, and the key for us in terms of collaboration is it's an open source platform. software is there for anyone to use. We have an open source contributing, and that community includes scientists, developers, service providers, clinicians. In fact, it's just a very diverse community of people working together in a collaborative way. And collaboration is really the key outcome of value from the tranSMART platform. The platform creates that value by linking discovery groups together with preclinical groups, together with clinical groups, enabling each of these groups to interrogate these data, to be able to form the hypotheses they need to drive their research, whether it might be a clinical trial design and bringing a new biomarker into that space, or understanding what is the appropriate target for drug discovery and choosing initial compounds to develop through that process. So tranSMART brings all these together and facilitates and enables that collaboration across these disciplines. And in our community, we've seen over the past 3 years a real broad adoption of the platform. Over 50 organizations have implemented tranSMART prior to version 1.2. These include international research initiatives like the ETRIX and EMIF initiatives as part of the Innovative Medicines Initiative in Europe, the TRAIT program, function of CTMN in the Netherlands. We've seen a strong adoption in pharma and biotech with companies like Sanofi, Millennium, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and Roche making major investments in the platform internally. We've even seen government institutions like the FDA get involved with tranSMART. And then one of the things we really facilitated with the development of version 1.1, the first truly open source version of the platform, reliant then on the Postgres platform, has been the adoption by a series of nonprofits, including OneMind for Research, Orion Bionetworks working in MS, and the Critical Path Institute, amongst others. And this adoption has also been seen across hospitals and academia, certainly the University of Michigan, Harvard with Paula Viek and others as well. And then we have a vibrant service provider community which has grown up to ensure that we can provide these platforms and support these platforms in the way that's most appropriate to each of the different groups using that platform. So overall, I think the platform has been growing since it was open sourced early in 2012. This is now the second major release of the platform, and the platform is an award winner. It won its second BioIT World Best Practice Award this past year for a project that was implemented on version 1.1 of the platform by Yanni Pandis, which is the UBioPred IMI project. And with 1.2 is having, in fact, almost exponential increase in capability and functionality. We expect these kinds of awards to continue in the future. I want to give you, just before we introduce each of the demonstrations, give you a quick view of the development activities that took place. Back in November, we had our foundation annual meeting hosted by Sanofi in Paris. And at this meeting, we developed a feature set for version 1.2. And that is, we looked at all the different features that different groups across the world had developed and decided which of those should make it into a 1.2 program. And then the foundation organized a series of hackathons, one in Boston, one in London, and then some testathons, that is to get developers along together with scientists to do testing. And those culminated in June of this year with a community testing release of 1.2. And then we did something unusual in the open source world, is we engaged the entire community in testing. And through June and July, we had 3 community testing debugging cycles where the developers worked very closely with the testers. And we worked through the areas of data loading and ETL development, functional testing and debugging, and implementation testing and debugging. That resulted August 1st in our first production release. And today we announce that formally and roll it out. And what you'll see is at the end of this week, in fact, is one of the first patches that will be formally released as well, as we continue to patch and update the platform to meet the needs of the community. I love looking back at some of the key metrics in the development process. This is a graphic taken from the Jira platform, which we use to manage the development process. And what you look at is when we had our annual meeting back here in November, you can see that there was a lull in activity until we initiated the first hackathon in February. And we see a burst of activity with the hackathon. We organized another hackathon with another burst of activity. And then as we went along to engage the community in testing, you can see, again, a large burst in activity both prior to the testing release and then post the testing release, to where we have a tremendous outpouring of effort both in terms of issues reported by the community and in terms of issues that have been resolved by the development community. One thing we can see is we still have a gap in our developer resource, and that's something we need to get more people engaged in to continue to enhance the quality and reliability of that platform. But it really shows the tremendous effort the community has put in place to put the platform together. I just want to take 2 minutes to run you through some of the key contributors. The community was very active across the board in evaluating the platform and reporting bugs for the developers to fix. And you can see the key contributors here. Terry Weymouth from University of Michigan, Jay Saha coming from IDBS in Europe, Ruslan from the Hive in the Netherlands, Jay Bergeron from Pfizer and Etrix, Tatiana coming from Rancho Biosciences, and others. We had a very broad distribution of people working both across the community and, in fact, globally overall. And then when it comes to development resources, developers that were engaging with these problems and fixing the problems, we see the same kind of global collaboration. Terry Weymouth from Michigan, Peter Rice from Imperial College of London, Charlotte from Sanofi, Axel from Imperial College, Ruslan from the Hive, Florian from Imperial, etc. So we can see the group of developers coming together to resolve these issues, in fact, span the community and span the globe. It really is a global resource and a global community that's come together to develop the platform. When we look at the overall contributors to this version of the platform, it really is quite broad. We have not only Etrix and IMI, CTMM, and others, but also groups like Converge Health, IDBS, BT Global Services that's hosted the platform, University of Michigan, which has provided key development and project management resources, etc. It's really been a global effort of people coming together to develop the platform that you're going to see momentarily.